The 12 sons of Jacob, shocking secrets behind their names, stories, and blessings. 12 brothers, one broken family. Out of betrayal, bloodshed, and secrets, God was weaving a plan that would change the world forever. This is not just a story of ancient names and forgotten tribes. It is the fire of jealousy, the weight of guilt, the cry of redemption, and the birth of a nation chosen to carry divine promise. At the center stands Jacob, a man who wrestled with God and limped away blessed. Around him, sons destined for greatness and ruin. What they became would echo through eternity. This is the untold story of the 12 tribes of Israel, and how heaven uses flawed men to write an eternal legacy. The family of promise, Jacob's legacy. In the stillness of a Canaan night, beneath a sky thick with stars, the desert seemed to hold its breath. A lone figure staggered near the river Jabbok, his body bruised from a mysterious struggle, his soul trembling from a divine encounter. That man was Jacob, and though his life began in rivalry and striving, it would end in a covenant that shaped the destiny of nations. Jacob, son of Isaac and grandson of Abraham, carried a promise that reached beyond human understanding. God had spoken, "Your descendants will be as countless as the stars in the sky and as the sand on the seashore. Through you, all nations on earth will be blessed." But from his first breath, Jacob's path was anything but smooth. He was born gripping the heel of his twin brother Esau, striving even in the womb. His name, Jacob, meant one who grasps or supplanter, a name that echoed in the struggles of his youth, the struggle for the birthright. Isaac loved Esau, the rugged hunter. Rebekah favored Jacob, the quiet man of tents. Tensions grew between the brothers until one day Esau sold his birthright for a simple bowl of stew. Later, Jacob, at his mother's urging, deceived his blind father, stealing the blessing meant for Esau. The household erupted in fury. Esau's cry of anguish pierced the silence. "Bless me too, my father." But Isaac's words could not be undone. Consumed with rage, Esau vowed to kill Jacob. Rebekah, fearing for her younger son, sent him away to her brother Laban's house in the east, the latter at Bethel. Alone in the wilderness, Jacob rested his head on a stone. That night he dreamed of a ladder stretching from earth to heaven, with angels ascending and descending. At the top stood the Lord, saying, "I am the God of Abraham and Isaac. The land where you lie I will give to your descendants. I am with you and will not leave you until I have done what I promised." Awakening in awe, Jacob declared, "Surely the Lord is in this place." He named it Bethel, house of God, and vowed to serve him, years of labor and loss. In Haran, Jacob worked for Laban, falling in love with Rachel. But on his wedding night, Laban deceived him into marrying Leah, Rachel's sister. For Rachel's hand, Jacob labored another 7 years. His household grew, as did his wealth, yet his heart remained restless. Through years of toil and strife, Jacob changed. The schemer who once grasped at blessings became a man humbled by hardship, learning to trust in God rather than his own cunning. Wrestling with God. Returning home, Jacob feared Esau's vengeance. On the banks of the Jabbok, he encountered a mysterious man and wrestled through the night. At dawn, Jacob cried, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." The stranger touched his hip, wrenching it from its socket. Then he spoke, "Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with men and have overcome." Jacob limped away, transformed. The man who had spent his life grasping now clung to God with all his strength. The sons of Israel. From Jacob came 12 sons born of Leah, Rachel, and their maidservants. These sons, flawed, ambitious, yet chosen, would become the tribes of Israel. Leah's sons, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun. Rachel's sons, Joseph and Benjamin. Bilhah's sons, Dan and Naphtali. Zilpah's sons, Gad and Asher. Each son carried unique strengths and weaknesses, and before Jacob's death, he would speak prophetic words over them, words that would shape their descendants for generations. A family destined to change the world. Jacob's family was far from perfect. Deception, jealousy, and pain stained their story, yet through them God wove a plan of redemption. From Judah's line would come King David. And from David's line, the Messiah, Jesus Christ, the Savior of the world. This is not merely the story of a man or a family. It is the story of God's faithfulness, working through human frailty to fulfill an eternal promise. Reuben, the firstborn who fell. The golden light of dawn spilled across the hills of Canaan, and in that glow stood Reuben, Jacob's firstborn. Tall and broad-shouldered, he seemed the very image of strength and promise. To Leah, his mother, Reuben was her victory, a son born in the hope of winning Jacob's love. To Jacob, he was the one destined to carry the family's honor. Yet within Reuben stirred a restlessness that would one day cost him everything. A glimpse of leadership. In his youth, Reuben often showed the makings of a noble leader. He quieted disputes among his brothers and bore the weight of being the eldest. When jealousy boiled over against Joseph, the dreamer favored by their father, Reuben's voice broke through their rage. "Do not shed his blood," he pleaded. "Throw him into this cistern, but harm him not." Reuben's plan was to return later and rescue Joseph. But as he stepped away, the others seized their chance. They sold Joseph to traders for 20 pieces of silver. When Reuben returned, the cistern was empty. Tearing his garments in anguish, he cried out, "The boy is gone. Where can I turn now?" His heart sank under the weight of guilt. He had failed as a protector. Though he joined in the cruel deception, bringing Joseph's bloodied robe to Jacob, Reuben's shame never left him. The sin that sealed his fate. Years passed, but Reuben's guilt festered. Perhaps seeking to assert himself in a household where his position felt unstable, he committed an act that forever changed his destiny. He lay with Bilhah, his father's concubine. This was more than a moral failing. It was a direct challenge to Jacob's authority, a violation that could not be ignored. Though Jacob said nothing at the time, the silence between father and son grew heavy, like a storm waiting to break. Jacob's final words. As Jacob neared death, he gathered his sons to speak prophetic blessings over them, words that would shape Israel's future. When Reuben came forward, Jacob's voice carried no warmth. "Reuben, you are my firstborn, my might, the first sign of my strength, excelling in honor, excelling in power. But turbulent as the waters, you will no longer excel. For you went up onto your father's bed and defiled it." In a single sentence, Jacob stripped Reuben of his birthright. The double inheritance, the leadership of the family, the blessings of the firstborn, all gone. Reuben's proud face faltered under the weight of his father's judgment. Around him, his brothers stood in silence. The eldest had fallen. Simeon and Levi, brothers of violence and redemption. The night in Canaan was heavy with silence as two brothers walked together, their hearts burning with a single, unshakable purpose. Simeon and Levi, sons of Leah, united in blood and rage. Where others hesitated, they became fire, fierce and consuming. They had grown under the shadow of their mother's sorrow. Leah, unloved and overlooked, poured her pain into her children, and Simeon and Levi drank deeply of her anguish. From that soil of rejection sprouted a hunger for justice, a hunger that would one day spill over in blood. The outrage at Shechem. Dinah, Jacob's only daughter, had gone to visit the women of the land. But in Shechem, a prince of the region, she encountered ruin. He took her, violated her, and then pleaded for her hand in marriage. Jacob, cautious and fearful of his neighbors, remained silent when he heard the news. But Simeon and Levi were not silent. To them, this was not merely an offense. It was a wound carved into their family's soul. When Shechem's father, Hamor, came to negotiate, the brothers' faces were calm, but behind their eyes vengeance brewed. "We cannot give our sister to the uncircumcised," they said. "But if every male among you is circumcised, we will dwell together as one people." Hamor agreed. The men of Shechem submitted to the painful rite. On the third day, when weakness had overtaken them, Simeon and Levi struck. Swords in hand, they moved through the city, cutting down every male, Hamor, Shechem, and all their people. Blood ran through the streets. They took Dinah from Shechem's house and left the city in ashes, plundering its wealth. It was vengeance, swift, merciless, and in their eyes justified. Jacob's anguish and curse. When Jacob learned what they had done, fear filled his heart. "You have brought trouble on me," he said bitterly. "You have made me obnoxious to the Canaanites. If they unite against us, we will be destroyed." But Simeon and Levi, still burning with fury, replied coldly, "Should he treat our sister like a prostitute?" They saw justice, Jacob saw calamity. Though no immediate consequence fell, his anger smoldered, waiting for the day of reckoning, the final judgment. As Jacob lay dying, he gathered his sons to speak blessings or curses over them. Simeon and Levi approached together as they always had, but their father's words carried no warmth. Simeon and Levi are brothers. Instruments of cruelty are in their dwelling. Cursed be their anger, for it is fierce, and their wrath, for it is cruel. I will divide them in Jacob, and scatter them in Israel. No blessing, only judgment. The brothers who had moved in unity would see their descendants divided and dispersed. Redemption for Levi. For Simeon, his tribe dwindled over generations, fading into obscurity. But for Levi, scattering became a calling. Generations later, at Mount Sinai, Israel fell into idolatry. Moses cried out, "Whoever is for the Lord, come to me." The sons of Levi stepped forward, swords once more in hand, not for vengeance, but for holiness. Because of their zeal, the tribe of Levi was set apart. They became priests, guardians of God's house, and teachers of his law. The curse turned into a blessing. Their passion, once destructive, became a force for worship. Judah, the lion who rose from failure. The air in Jacob's household crackled with tension. Among 12 brothers, rivalries flared like sparks in dry grass. And in the midst of this storm stood Judah, the fourth son of Lee, watching silently, too often choosing caution over courage. Judah was neither the firstborn like Reuben nor as fierce as Simeon and Levi. But his life, marked by failure and redemption, would carve a path for kings and alter the destiny of nations. The betrayal of a brother. It began on a day when hatred won and mercy fled. Joseph, the dreamer, came walking across the fields clothed in his father's gift, a robe of many colors. His brothers' jealousy boiled over. "Here comes that dreamer," they hissed. "Let's kill him and throw him into a cistern. Then we'll see what becomes of his dreams." Reuben intervened, urging restraint. "Do not shed blood. Throw him into this cistern here in the wilderness, but don't lay a hand on him." As Joseph cried out for mercy, Judah's voice cut through the murmurs with cold pragmatism. "What will we gain if we kill our brother? Come, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh and blood." And so Joseph was sold for 20 pieces of silver, his hands bound, his cries fading into the desert wind. Judah watched him disappear over the horizon, unaware that this choice would haunt his soul for years to come. The downward spiral. Guilt clung to Judah like a shadow. He distanced himself from his brothers and moved to Adullam, marrying a Canaanite woman and fathering 3 sons, Onan, and Shelah. But tragedy struck. His firstborn, was struck down by God for wickedness. Onan, tasked to continue his brother's line with Tamar, refused and was also struck down. Judah hesitated to give his youngest son, Shelah, to Tamar. "Wait until he grows up," he said, though in his heart he feared Tamar was cursed. Time passed. Tamar, desperate to secure her place in Judah's family, veiled herself and waited by the roadside as Judah traveled to Timnah. Mistaking her for a prostitute, Judah went into her, leaving his seal, cord, and staff as a pledge. From this encounter, Tamar conceived confrontation and confession. Months later, word came. "Your daughter-in-law Tamar is guilty of prostitution, and now she is pregnant." Rage flared in Judah's heart. "Bring her out and burn her to death," he demanded. But Tamar sent a message. "I am pregnant by the man who owns these." As she held up the seal, cord, and staff, Judah froze. The truth pierced him like a blade. In that moment of shame, his hardened heart cracked open. "She is more righteous than I," he confessed. It was Judah's first step toward redemption. A lion awakens. Years later, famine struck. Jacob sent his sons to Egypt to buy grain, not knowing Joseph, now ruler of Egypt, stood before them. When Joseph demanded that Benjamin be brought to Egypt, fear gripped Jacob. But Judah stepped forward. "Send the boy with me," he said. "I myself will guarantee his safety. If I do not bring him back, I will bear the blame forever." When Joseph's silver cup was found in Benjamin's sack, Judah spoke again, not as a schemer, but as a man transformed. "Please, let me stay as your slave in place of the boy. Let Benjamin return to his father. How can I watch my father's misery if the boy does not return?" Gone was the Judah who sold his brother. This was a man willing to lay down his life for his family, the blessing of the scepter. On his deathbed, Jacob blessed his sons. But Judah's blessing was unique. "Judah, your brothers will praise you. Your hand will be on the neck of your enemies. You are a lion's cub, Judah. The scepter will not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until he to whom it belongs shall come, and the obedience of the nations shall be his." From Judah's line would come King David, and from David's line, Jesus Christ, the Lion of Judah, whose kingdom will never end. The legacy of Judah. Judah's story is one of failure turned to faith, betrayal transformed into bravery. His life reminds us that no fall is too great for God to redeem. From the ashes of shame, a lion arose, one whose roar would echo through eternity. Joseph, the dreamer who saved a nation. Under the blazing sun of Canaan, Joseph walked toward his brothers, his robe of many colors fluttering like a banner. To Jacob, this robe symbolized love for Rachel's son. To his brothers, it was a constant reminder of their father's favoritism, and it fed their hatred. Joseph dreamed often. In one vision, sheaves of wheat bowed before his own. In another, the sun, moon, and 11 stars bowed low. When he shared these dreams, his brothers' envy turned to rage. "Will you really reign over us?" They mocked, but deep inside, fear and jealousy festered. The day of betrayal. One day, Jacob sent Joseph to check on his brothers in the fields. As they spotted him in the distance, the robe bright against the dry earth, their hatred boiled over. "Here comes the dreamer," they muttered. "Let's kill him and see what becomes of his dreams." Reuben stepped in. "Do not kill him. Throw him into this cistern," he said, planning to rescue Joseph later, but Judah proposed another way. "Why shed blood? Let's sell him to the Ishmaelites." Stripping Joseph of his robe, they sold him for 20 pieces of silver. As the caravan carried him away, Joseph's cries faded in the desert wind. That night they dipped the robe in goat's blood and showed it to Jacob. The grieving father tore his clothes. "Surely my son has been torn to pieces," he wept. From slave to prisoner. In Egypt, Joseph was sold to Potiphar, captain of Pharaoh's guard. God blessed him, and soon Joseph managed Potiphar's entire household. But trouble found him again. Potiphar's wife tried to seduce him. Joseph refused, saying, "How could I sin against God?" In her anger, she accused him falsely. Joseph was thrown into prison, his dreams seemingly shattered. Even in prison, God's favor remained. The warden put Joseph in charge of other prisoners, the interpreter of dreams. 2 royal officials, the cupbearer and the baker, were imprisoned. Each had a troubling dream. "Interpretations belong to God," Joseph said. To the cupbearer, he predicted restoration. To the baker, execution. Both came true. Joseph asked the cupbearer to remember him, but he forgot, from prison to palace. 2 years later, Pharaoh dreamed of 7 fat cows devoured by 7 gaunt ones, and 7 healthy heads of grain swallowed by 7 withered ones. None could explain them. The cupbearer remembered Joseph. Summoned from prison, Joseph listened to Pharaoh's dreams. "God reveals what he will do," Joseph explained. 7 years of abundance will be followed by 7 years of famine. Store grain during the good years to survive the famine. Impressed, Pharaoh appointed Joseph governor over all Egypt, the brothers' redemption. The famine reached Canaan. Jacob sent his sons to Egypt for grain. Bowing before Joseph, they unknowingly fulfilled his youthful dreams. Joseph tested them, demanding they bring Benjamin, the youngest brother. When they returned, Joseph's heart softened. Judah spoke up. "Take me as a slave in Benjamin's place," he pleaded. "Let the boy return to his father." Overcome with emotion, Joseph revealed himself. "I am Joseph, your brother. God sent me ahead to save lives." Reconciliation followed. The family moved to Egypt, saved from famine. Jacob's blessing for Joseph. Before his death, Jacob blessed Joseph. "Joseph is a fruitful vine near a spring, whose branches climb over a wall, though archers attacked him. His bow remained steady, because of the mighty one of Jacob." Joseph had endured betrayal, prison, and pain. Yet he became a savior, not just for Egypt, but for his family. Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, the youngest sons, and their legacy. In Jacob's final years, his eyes often turned to Benjamin, the last child of Rachel, the woman he loved most. Among 12 sons, Benjamin's story stood apart, filled with both tenderness and the fierce power of a wolf. Benjamin, the beloved son, the fierce wolf. Benjamin's birth was marked by sorrow and love. Rachel, struggling in labor, gave her life to bring him into the world. With her dying breath, she named him Ben-Oni, son of my sorrow. But Jacob, refusing to let grief define his last link to Rachel, renamed him Benjamin, son of my right hand. After losing Joseph, Jacob clung to Benjamin. He became the old man's treasure, too precious to risk. But famine forced Jacob to send Benjamin to Egypt, where an unexpected reunion awaited. When Joseph, long thought dead, revealed himself to his brothers, it was Benjamin he embraced first. The 2 sons of Rachel wept in each other's arms, their tears washing away decades of loss and betrayal. At the end of his life, Jacob blessed Benjamin with surprising words. "Benjamin is a ravenous wolf. In the morning he devours the prey. In the evening he divides the plunder. This gentle son would father a tribe of fierce warriors." From Benjamin's line came King Saul, and men known for bravery and ferocity. Yet their fiery spirit also led to civil strife, nearly wiping out their tribe in later years. Benjamin's legacy was a paradox, tender yet dangerous, a wolf who protected and consumed. Dan, the judge, and the serpent by the path. Dan's birth was born of Rachel's desperation. Unable to bear children, she gave her maidservant Bilhah to Jacob. From this union came Dan. He has judged, Rachel declared, believing God had vindicated her rivalry with Leah. Jacob's blessing over Dan carried both promise and warning. Dan shall judge his people. As one of the tribes of Israel, Dan shall be a serpent by the path, a viper that bites the horse's heels, so its rider falls backward. Dan's tribe produced judges like Samson, whose supernatural strength delivered Israel, but whose recklessness led to tragedy. Later, the tribe of Dan would turn to idolatry, establishing golden calves and leading others astray. Dan's story is a sobering reminder. Judgment without wisdom can destroy as easily as it saves. Naphtali, the free deer and the voice of beauty. Naphtali, also born to Bilhah, came into a world of struggle and longing. Rachel named him from her wrestling, Naphtali. But Jacob's blessing painted a gentler picture. Naphtali is a doe set free. That bears beautiful words. Naphtali's tribe became known for agility and courage. They settled in Galilee's fertile hills and moved swiftly in battle, like deer bounding through forests. When Deborah, the prophetess, summoned Israel to fight against Canaanite oppression, Naphtali's warriors were among the first to respond. Quick-footed and loyal, they helped secure a great victory. Naphtali's strength lay in balance, freedom with loyalty, speed with grace, and words that soothed rather than wounded. 3 sons, one divine plan. Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali each carried a unique legacy. One tender and fierce, one cunning yet flawed, one graceful and swift. Though their lives were marked by struggle and imperfection, God wove their stories into the tapestry of Israel. Their tribes, with all their strengths and failings, became part of the promise first spoken to Abraham, a family through whom the world would be blessed. As Jacob's life drew to its end, 4 sons remained to receive his final words, tribes destined to bring both strength and challenge to Israel's unfolding story. Gad, Asher, Issachar, Zebulun, the final sons and their callings. As Jacob's weary eyes swept over his remaining sons, the air in the tent felt heavy with destiny. 4 more blessings remained, 4 lives that would ripple across generations. Gad, Asher, Issachar, and Zebulun carried stories of strength, abundance, wisdom, and exploration. Each one was a vital thread in the tapestry of Israel. Gad, the warrior who holds the line. Jacob's voice turned firm as he looked at Gad, Leah's son through Zilpah. His name meant good fortune, and Jacob's words hinted at a life shaped by battle. Gad will be attacked by a band of raiders, but he will attack them at their heels. Gad's descendants settled on exposed land east of the Jordan River. Their position placed them face to face with constant threats from enemies. Yet they became known as fierce warriors, men with faces like lions and feet as swift as gazelles. These soldiers weren't just protectors of their own land. They stood shoulder to shoulder with their brothers, fighting for Israel's survival. Gad's legacy became a symbol of resilience, loyalty, and courage against overwhelming odds. Asher, the blessed provider. Jacob's tone softened as he turned to Asher, Zilpah's second son. His name meant happy, and Jacob's words flowed like rich oil. Asher's food will be rich. He will provide delicacies fit for a king. Asher's tribe inherited fertile lands along the Mediterranean coast. Olive groves and vineyards flourished there, and their oil was prized throughout the region. This abundance wasn't just for them. It became a blessing for all of Israel. Asher's role was to sustain and delight, proving that not every calling required a sword. In their prosperity, they embodied God's promise of joy and provision. Issachar, the strong donkey of wisdom. Jacob's eyes fell on Issachar, Lee's ninth son. His blessing was cryptic yet profound. Issachar is a strong donkey, lying down between two burdens. He saw that his resting place was good, yet he bent his shoulder to the load. Issachar's descendants became known for their wisdom. They studied the times, offering counsel when Israel faced difficult decisions. Their fertile lands allowed them to live quietly and work diligently. But their strength also made them vulnerable. Others would sometimes impose forced labor upon them. Still, Issachar's tribe chose peace over conflict, and their wisdom became their greatest weapon. Zebulun, the merchant of the seas. Finally, Jacob turned to Zebulun, Lee's 10th son. His voice carried a note of adventure. Zebulun will live by the seashore and become a haven for ships. Zebulun's tribe settled near Israel's northern coast, thriving on trade and seafaring. Their ships carried goods and stories across the waters, connecting Israel with the wider world. Zebulun's legacy was not just about wealth, it was about influence. They reminded Israel that God's people were meant to be a light to the nations, blessing others even as they remained faithful to him. 4 paths, 1 plan. Gad fought with unwavering strength. Asher prospered and provided. Issachar bore burdens with wisdom. Zebulun ventured into the seas and beyond. Each of these final sons had a distinct calling, yet all were part of God's greater plan. Together, they remind us that warriors, providers, thinkers, and explorers are all necessary in the story of redemption. As Jacob's words faded into silence, his sons stood like pillars around him, 12 men whose destinies would shape a nation. Jacob's final words and the destiny of Israel. The tent was quiet, except for the faint rustle of linen and the labored breathing of an old man. Jacob lay on his bed, frail yet fierce, his eyes burning with the weight of a lifetime. Around him, the 12 sons of Israel stood in a circle, men of strength, weakness, courage, and failure. Each carried his own story, yet all were bound together in one promise. Jacob lifted his hand, and the sons leaned in. His voice was low but carried the authority of heaven itself. "You are my sons. From you shall come a nation as numerous as the stars, as vast as the sands of the sea." He began with Reuben, the firstborn, whose instability cost him the rights of leadership. He moved to Simeon and Levi, whose anger had scattered them, yet whose descendants would one day serve in God's holy presence. Judah's name came with power. "The scepter shall not depart from Judah," Jacob declared, "nor the ruler's staff from between his feet until he comes to whom it belongs. To him shall be the obedience of the nations." A hush fell over the room. It was more than a blessing. It was a prophecy of a coming king, a Messiah. Joseph's turn brought tears to Jacob's eyes. The son of his beloved Rachel had suffered betrayal, slavery, and prison, yet had risen to save nations. "Joseph is a fruitful vine," Jacob said. "His branches run over the wall. The Almighty has blessed you beyond measure." Benjamin, the youngest, received a different word. "A ravenous wolf. In the morning he devours the prey. In the evening he divides the plunder." Fierce and bold, his tribe would give rise to mighty warriors. One by one, Jacob spoke into the destinies of his sons. Each word was like a seed planted deep into the soil of history, waiting to bear fruit in the generations to come. As his strength waned, Jacob gathered his last breath. "Do not bury me in Egypt," he said. "Carry me to my fathers, to the cave at Machpelah." And with that, the patriarch of Israel drew his feet into the bed and was gathered to his people. Outside, the wind swept over the desert sands. Above, the stars blazed in the night sky, 12 points of light, each one carrying the name of a son, each one a promise unbroken. Israel's story had only begun. As we reflect on the lives of Jacob's 12 sons, their strengths, failures, and the blessings spoken over them, we are reminded of a powerful truth. God weaves his purposes even through imperfect people. Their stories call us to examine our own hearts, to seek his guidance, and to walk in the blessings he has prepared for us. If this message has stirred something in you, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Which lesson from the 12 sons spoke most deeply to your heart? And don't forget, our upcoming videos will uncover even more hidden mysteries and sacred words of God that you may have never heard before. These timeless truths could transform your spiritual journey in ways you never imagined. So stay tuned, because the next story might be the one that changes your life forever.